I'm here with Rob Pascoe, candidate for Hamilton City Council and currently sitting councillor for the third term running.
I've completed 2 terms.
You've completed, so this will be the third term.
If successful, this will be the 3rd term.
Now, the big thing with this is why should people vote for you?
I think I represent, I'm a 3rd generation Hamiltonian. I've lived here all my life. I'm part of the city. I've been in business in the city. And now, as part of my public service, I have an opportunity to give some of my business experience and my professional skills back to the city, which is what I'm doing. And I think I present to the city a pretty level-headed person who has got who has got a command over our finances, our debt, and I can make a contribution in those particular areas.
I like the fact that you use the term community service, because I think a lot of candidates don't fully realise that what they're doing is a community service. You know, yes, as a if you get in, you get paid for it and all that sort of carry on, but it is a service to the community by taking the skills and experiences you've got and your willingness to stand up and get things done and keep an eye on things, make sure things run smoothly in the best interest of the people. I think that's why a lot of people tend to be at least above middle age when they get into council, because by then they've had enough life experiences to know what we need and this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right, Lance, and I think that when you talk about public service, it's about also having a diversified council where you've got people coming in with all kinds of skills and experience, and while that doesn't always happen in the political environment, maybe there's an opportunity that we can leverage off the skills and experience of other councillors and get better outcomes for the city.
Yeah, which is cool. I know
which is ultimately what we're there for, is to try and make the city better than what it was when we first came on board.
Well, that's the idea. I know when I do my voting, I look at the issues, what people say they're going to do, what their past behaviour in council if they were a previous candidate, etc., all that sort of thing. But I also look at balancing out to make sure that I am voting for someone that represents each of the core areas: finance, social issues, green issues, things like this, so that at least I know when I voted, I've found the best person for each of those categories. Whether or not they get in is dependent on the total votes, but at least I've tried to balance it out, and hopefully if everyone uses the same approach.
And I think the word balance is right. What we need to do is not have a board full of a council full of accountants and lawyers and all lawyers. What we need to do is have a council that fairly reflects the views of our residents and our community, so that they know exactly what those good outcomes are likely to be.
It's interesting that this council sitting at the moment, and presumably, hopefully it'll carry on to the next one, we've had a council that pretty much works together as a team. There is, yes, we vote based on the wards, one side of the river or the other, because that limits who you get to vote for. But I've noticed that the council does tend to work as a team. They don't see themselves as specifically their side of the river, which I think's good.
Yeah, I think that's how it should be. Once you're on board, while you represent, in my case, I've represented the residents in the East Ward. That doesn't mean to say that I won't get involved in a particular issue around something that's occurring in Hamilton West, and vice versa. And I see other councillors from the West Ward participating and if you look at Peacock, for example, Peacock's a major growth cell for the West Ward, but East Ward councillors have been just as participatory in that as the West Ward councillors.
Because these things impact all of Hamilton. How that development goes, how the rugby stadium works, how the Claudelands Event Centre works, and whether it's profitable or not. and where that falls and does it need to be profitable, that sort of thing, that affects the whole of
impacts
of
on the whole city.
Our water treatment for sewages on one end and one side of the river. Our treatment of drinking waters on one side of the river. It's not on both.
Yep.
So,
and
decisions on that affect everyone.
And they are our major infrastructure assets, in the city.
Yeah. Now, as an accountant, I think people, I'm making an assumption here, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I think people can feel confident that you're going to keep an eye on the bottom line, while still keeping in mind that there are other issues that impact Hamilton, but we need to be responsible with our spending, because unlike business where you can decide, the coffee's too expensive here, I'll go somewhere else. With council, you take rates, and we don't get to choose, short of shifting into a different city, we don't get to choose what we pay you as in terms of rates. So we need to know that council are making good decisions about how that's money spent, and when it comes to areas that are going to cost council, that are not going to make a profit necessarily, that there is a good reason that if they don't have a financial profit, they've got a social profit.
Yep, I quite agree. And look, over the last 6 years, I hope that the city residents, when they come to vote, will sense that I have kept a very close eye on the finances and on our debt. And I think I've got a good balance between doing that and also finding out from our city residents what they want by way of what you call community assets, because community assets typically don't make any profits. Indeed, they make big losses. If we look at this, if we look at the FMG Stadium, and we look at Claudelands and so forth, but many people in Hamilton want those assets. They want a rugby field. They want a cricket pitch. They want Claudelands for major conferences, for shows, rock shows. And
I think most Hamiltonians are proud that we've got the gardens at the level we have, that people actually come to Hamilton and go to the gardens and look.
Exactly, and Hamiltonians go there too and enjoy them too. So when they go there, they say, well, this is my rates at work, in effect, because it's costing me. But if they are the things, and I think of more recently, our community assets, we've invested quite a bit in new playgrounds. We've got the new playground in Hillcrest, and we built the new one in Haripuki last year. And, almost instantly they're open. There are crowds of kids there. There are parents turning up in cars because many of them are destination playgrounds, and they have a picnic there, and they're being used. And to me, that's a good investment. Even as an accountant, that's a good investment, because people are actually using them. Whereas if we invest in something that becomes a white elephant, then we have to really put our thinking caps on and decide whether or not that was a wise investment.
And that's the thing I've noticed with these parks is people, I think sometimes if they go, I don't have kids, I don't go to the park, I don't take kids to the park. But the thing is, parks have a feel-good function. They're a good way. I've noticed in a couple of the new ones that I didn't know till I rode past them, that they were there. I noticed there's parents coming together that are interacting with each other, and the more social contact people have, the better the local community is. I read some studies that a while back that were looking at the relationship between good, usable, friendly playgrounds that parents can go to and meet other parents, and kids can interact and all this sort of thing. Comparing that with drops in crime in these areas, and how just the difference between lack of graffiti in a playground can make a difference as to the behaviour of people in general in that neighbourhood. And having a playground full stop, because we've got to admit that not everyone can afford expensive outings for their kids, but kids are pretty easy to satisfy. You chuck them on a swing and push them a few times, and put them on a seesaw and things like this, and let them climb over stuff, and It's like giving a cat a cardboard box.
They're a bit more sophisticated than that now, Lance. Some of the new playgrounds have got some really good apparatus in them, more than the seesaw and the swing that we used to play on when we were kids. But look, you are right, the socialising aspect. And I think a community takes ownership. I know where I am at Flagstaff, the local community got in behind council, helped them design, and the same with Hillcrest. There was a lady up in Hillcrest who we worked closely with for the Hillcrest development. So they kind of got a little bit of what they wanted in the playground. And so when you've got community ownership, the community tends to look after it better too. You know, that they go down there and they'll boot the kids off who are vandalising it or putting graffiti around.
There's a sense of pride and responsibility.
They say, "Oh, this is ours." You know, we made a commitment to insist that council build this playground for us, and now we want it to be a community asset for us, for our kids and our grandkids to enjoy.
And I can see that happening with the Melville Skate Park. I went to that on the weekend. And
so we caught up there, didn't we? Yes.
Surprise, surprise! I bumped into a councillor or two there. But that's another one that they're quite passionate about, and you can see that they're very keen to make that the best and keep it going as the best they can possibly get for it. You know?
And when you see the community turning up as they did for that open afternoon at Melville Park, you know that they want to make a contribution, and you know they write up their little sticky quick stick and put them up on the board so that council can then go away and maybe look at better ways that the community had suggested on how they could redevelop that skate park and indeed the rest of the park, because I think they want to upgrade the basketball courts and also the little playground there, the little neighbourhood playground.
It's going to be, because at the moment there's big areas that are just grass, and some of that gets quite swampy at times. And from what I was looking at in the plans, it looks like it's going to be quite an area to go to. It'll be quite a central point for a lot of kids, not just skateboarders and kids using scooters, but kids want to play basketball and other things. It's going to be, which is good.
Which is good.
Now, I've got to ask, is there, I don't like to use the term pet project, but is there any, because I hate that term, but is there anything that if you get in this coming term that's going to be a reasonably strong focus or something that you think we need to get done, that needs to have action done on it, either something that's already half done that needs to be pushed forward or something that needs to be started?
There is a pet project that I have. I'll call it a pet project, but what I would like to see us improving the delivery of our three waters. And we're working closely with our neighbouring councils again, as we did in the last term and this term to some extent, in terms of how we might better deliver fresh water, drinking water, how we might get rid of the wastewater, and how we might deal with stormwater. And it is becoming a major issue. I looked at my rates bill that I got last week, and if I go back to March, 26% of my rates went to water.
26%?
26% went to water management, and in the last rate bill I got last week, it's 34%.
James.
So the cost of actually delivering water in our city, and our people do a great job, because we get, our water, the resilience of our water supply and our waste is extremely good even by national standards. But it's costing us money.
Apparently the treated water that we put back into the river is actually cleaner than when we pulled it out,
potable,
which is good, because that's always been my issue.
But we're finding out around the world now that by changing around the way we deliver water, that is working in and building joint infrastructure rather than us building our own, and Waipa and Waikato building their own. If we can do these things together, we can save oodles and oodles of money. And worldwide, the trend is towards doing this. So we need to get, and it's a matter of breaking down political barriers as well as management in order to see if we can deliver the product and the service better and more cheaply than what we currently are.
And it's going to become more important in the fact that Hamilton is growing, so the demand for that is going to grow. the current pipes in the ground were designed for single resident properties. Now we're getting a lot more multi-resident properties.
Yep.
So there's going to have to be some solutions. People are probably going to have to at some point put up with roadworks as pipes get replaced or and this sort of thing. There's all these things that over the next 10 or 15 odd years roughly that are going to happen. Otherwise we will fall behind.
Yep. And there's even a bigger picture here because we have a very big dairy and animal industry around us. We have industries that use those products, and they are what we call wet industries, and they need significant amounts of money, like significant amounts of water, like the dairy, like Fonterra, like the dairy goat cooperative, and so forth. So if we're going to allow those industries to develop in the city and create jobs for those working in the city, we need to have water supply that will allow those businesses to increase and to establish themselves and to increase their production levels.
And that's the other thing.
So that's what we call a wet industry, which of course uses probably as much water in a day as a whole suburb would use in a week.
And that's the other thing is when I was a kid living in the King Country, we used to come to Hamilton to the orthodontist, or we go through Hamilton to Auckland, and I was looking at some of the figures in that little booklet that the council put out. Didn't realise how small Hamilton was when I was living in Te Kuiti as a kid, right, and how much it's grown since then, even just between when I shifted to Hamilton and onwards, the massive jump in population. And Hamilton is now becoming a destination location that people actually go to specifically. But also with Auckland getting crowded like it is and things like this, Hamilton's in a situation where it's becoming a lot more inviting for businesses to set up business here and therefore obviously provide more employment. And of course, if you've got a new office block, it's not just like the ones like, I think Inland Revenue and DHB are shifting into Hamilton City itself. But if you've got a whole new business that decides, we can't be bothered with having our office in Auckland, we're going to relocate to Hamilton, that's going to suddenly put another...
And that's happening, Lance. The last time I saw a business case, it was 20% cheaper to relocate a business from Auckland, and that was South Auckland, into Hamilton.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and another reason which wasn't quantified within that 20%, was that there was a more stable workforce here too. So that was another plus for bringing the business down. So, apart from the cost of land and buildings, rent, and all of the other business costs, if you like, being 20% cheaper, there was a much more stable workforce here.
So it's very important that council and councillors, when they're making decisions, are actually thinking ahead past their 3-year term and actually looking 15, 20 years ahead. Because what you set in place now defines what we end up with in 10 or 15 years. It's not just a 10-year plan. It's going, okay, Hamilton's moving in this direction, the population's growing, we're getting more business. If we do things right, that will keep happening at a level that creates employment and makes it an inviting place to live, rather than waiting until 15 years down the track and trying to put a Band-Aid on things.
Since I've been on the 6 years I've been on council, we've extended that 10-year. Although we have to do a 10-year long-term plan as part of our statutory responsibility, we've actually extended that out to 30 years in terms of not in the detail of the 10-year plan, but we have got over the next 20 years beyond that 10-year plan. If you like, an idea of what our infrastructure needs are going to be, and where we need to plan to have industrial land. But more than that, but not quite so planned down to the last dollar. But we have got ideas of where we might put business hubs and so forth around the city, so that somebody planning to do that in 12 or 15 years' time could say, oh, yeah, well, if there's going to be a hub there, that might be somewhere where we could put this, if we're planning that far ahead. And, of course, the 10 years goes so quickly that, suddenly you're into that 12th or 15th year. And if you haven't planned for it, there can be some huge gaps.
So, not one to pick on your age, but you did mention you're pretty much retired from ordinary
from my accounting practice. Yep.
So, what do you think Hamilton will look like in 30 years when your grandkids decide to take you out for an outing when you're 95 or something or other, and they take you out
with my Zimmer frame?
When they take you out for an outing around Hamilton, we'll wheel them out into the sunshine. What do you think Hamilton will look like? Is there anything that stands out that will be noticeably different from what it is now?
I think there'll be fewer cars on the road.
Okay.
I think there'll be people moving around with Ubers or whatever else to get long distances. People will be walking. There'll be other means of transport. There'll be almost all electric cars, I would think, in terms of commuters within the city.
Okay.
I hope that what we're doing now around our roading, our transport area, which includes cycleways and walkways and roads, that we are doing things that will future-proof the growing needs of the city, so that we won't end up. We will have in certain parts of the city gridlock at certain times of the day, but we won't be like Auckland, where the southern motorway is a car park almost 24.
Yeah. Even as a non-driver, I dread driving into Auckland at the wrong time of the day, because it's like, we're on the motorway. Okay, while you're driving, I will put the chair back and have a nap.
and to be, every time they extend the motorway, the southern motorway, all it does is put a band-aid over it, and there's another gridlock traffic area somewhere else up the motorway that needs to have the extra lanes and so forth. So, I would hope that what we're doing now will future-proof us against that with a growing city, and that would be a real important win in 30 years' time. If my grandkids are driving me around the city, and I can quietly nod to myself, "Oh, we got that one right."
We got that right. And I remember when that didn't used to be there. And
and the other thing is, we're a city with a very young population. We're the third lowest median age of any city in New Zealand, and I think we need to do a lot more to make sure that we are a city for families, because if we are successful in attracting people to come and work here, we need to make the city livable in the sense that you've got your gardens, you've got your stadiums, you've got your arena, you've got all of these things that allow us to play on the weekends or in the evenings and not just work all day.
Well, if we've got a lot of young families in Hamilton, and it's a place that's got such a high percentage of young people, then Hamilton, to some degree, can shape the social future of New Zealand. Because if we put in place a city that enables families to grow up better than they might otherwise in less good areas, then they've got a good start. Their attitude's different, all that sort of thing. It's you have a specific attitude if you grow up in the country. You have a specific attitude if you don't have access to entertainment things and parks and things like this, and that does affect the sort of person you become later on. And if you live in an unsafe environment, for instance, is one thing. Is you live in an unsafe environment, you grow up to be a specific type of person who treats the people around you in a different way than if you grow up in what I consider to be Hamilton as it is now.
A safe environment, a safe and comfortable environment. I agree.
I know. I always used to think of Hamilton as the big city, and it's oh no, we're going to the big city, and Auckland was just unbelievable. Auckland to me, as a country person, when I was a kid, Auckland was like Hong Kong is to most New Zealanders.
Yep.
It's that bigger difference.
Yeah.
And I think if you can keep that nice and friendly and welcoming and a nice place,
Yep.
then you've got a good jump on creating a good society.
Yeah. And I think we're putting into place some of those things that hopefully will mitigate against the city's growth, because the city is growing. People want to come and live here. They come here for jobs. They come here because there's good schooling, good tertiaries.
Yeah.
And we're close to Auckland. We're close to the major airports. We're close to skiing. We're close to beaches. So we've got a number of things that we haven't got in the city, but we're within sneezing distance of getting.
We're half an hour or thereabouts from a beach.
Yep.
We're an hour and a half or something from Auckland itself.
Yep.
We're only a couple of hours from Tauranga, which is the other side of the island.
That's right.
And it's not too big.
And then we've got snow 2.5 hours south.
And we're not in a location like every time you get bad weather, you always hear about roofs being ripped off houses in Auckland and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not common to hear that sort of thing in Hamilton.
Yeah.
So we're in a location. I like to think of it as the best location to live in New Zealand, but other people might
You're right.
argue that.
We don't get extremes of weather here.
No,
which is good.
and I think people are a lot more in touch with the people around them. And that sort of thing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Our parks will do that too, won't they?
Yes,
They'll get us all socialising.
And that's the one thing with the technological age where people have got iPhones and iPads and Android phones and all this sort of carry on and electronic devices, just to see kids out in parks physically doing things, climbing on things, running around, that sort of thing, with a group of other kids and not staring at a screen.
Yeah.
I think that's overall good for the community and good for their development. And it's purely because we've got those spaces. I've done a bit of street photography in Auckland, and there's some parts I've been to where you've got big apartment buildings, and there's no green space to go and play in. It's if you had if all those apartment buildings were full of young families with a couple of kids or one kid, what on earth do they do? They presumably sit inside all the time. And I noticed there's a few people talking about the need for smaller playgrounds in neighbourhoods as well.
We call those pocket parks. Yeah.
Pocket parks. Which I also think is quite a good idea.
And we're encouraging developers when they build those high density units like they have around Queen's Ave.
Yep.
They've got a little park in there, in the one in Queen's Ave, that Andrew Yeoman did 5 or 6 years ago, as well as out at Rototuna. There's also pocket park areas that accompany those.
Talking about that, so you're listening. So the council as a whole is actually listening to the community when it comes to these things and working with them.
I hope we are. Yes, yeah. I mean, we hear at times that we don't do that particularly well. But yes, we are, we're trying through our district plan to make sure that in the design of these high density residential developments, that we actually have provision, or that we have got parks nearby, so that you can pull your bike out of the garage or off the balcony and take it down and do a bit of biking, or do a bit of running, or do some walking around the park.
But I must admit, it's nice for me during summer in particular. I can ride to basically anywhere in Hamilton because we're not too spread out, but it's also relatively comfortable to ride to these places. If I decide to go to the zoo or the gardens or wherever, it's easy to get to.
Yep.
The river ride, that's my highway. When I go to the gardens, that's often my highway. Even though I can go down Grey Street, I'll often come into town and go down the river.
Yep.
Because it's just a pleasant ride.
And we are a relatively flat city, compared with, say, Auckland or Wellington.
Yeah.
So it is easier to get around on a bike, although there's a few hills. But citywide, we're relatively flat, which is a plus. Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Lance.
Enjoy the election and good luck. And thanks for sitting down with me and talking about a few things. I think it's important for people to hear a chat over coffee about where you stand, what you're looking at doing, where council's going, these sort of things, so that we can, as voters, we can make better decisions and make sure we get a nice balanced council that's going to move in the direction that Hamilton as a whole wants to go, rather than the council that dictates to us what's going to happen. So I think it's important.
Thanks, Lance.
Good luck.
Cheers.